Okay, I want you to close your eyes for a second. Picture this. It's 1951. You're backstage at a concert. And in the foreground, you have the absolute titans of country music. You've got Hank Williams Sr., maybe little Jimmy Dickens, Minnie Pearl, the legends.
The Mount Rushmore of the genre, basically.
Exactly. But then looming behind them, and I mean literally towering over the entire scene, is a man who looks like he was drawn by a comic book artist who didn't understand human proportions. He's 6'7".
And that is in his socks.
Right. That's the barefoot stat. Now, you throw on a pair of high-heeled cowboy boots and a 10-gallon hat, you are looking at a man who is nearly scraping the ceiling fixtures.
It's a striking image. You really get a sense of why they called him Big Bill.
We are talking about Weldon E. Lister, known to history simply as Big Bill Lister. And while his physical stature is a great hook, radio's tallest singing cowboy.
It is a great hook.
It is. But the reason we pulled these specific files today isn't just to talk about how tall he was.
No, not at all.
It's because Lister is the protagonist of arguably the strangest time capsule story in music history.
It really is. It's a story about the intersection of, like, archival preservation and 1980s technology. We're looking at how a man who was a star in 1951 became the catalyst for a massive cultural moment nearly 40 years later.
All thanks to a piece of plastic.
A piece of plastic hidden in an attic. Yeah.
It's a ghost story, a tech thriller, and a biography all wrapped in one. So our mission for this deep dive is to connect those dots. We need to understand Lister's prime as the opening act for Hank Williams Sr., then dissect the technical wizardry behind a very famous music video and look at Lister's fascinating second career, which had nothing to do with music and everything to do with incredibly steady hands.
And just to frame this for you listening, if this were a movie script, studio executives would send it back. They'd say it was too unrealistic. The coincidences are they're too perfect.
Okay, so let's set the scene. It's 1951. If you look at the tour schedules, the radio logs from this era, Big Bill Lister isn't just a footnote. He is everywhere.
Oh, he was inescapable in the Southern Circuit. At this point, Lister is the front man for his own, honky-tonk style. But his primary role, the one that really puts him in the history books, is serving as the opening act for the Drifting Cowboys.
Which, for anyone who doesn't know the hierarchy of 1950s country, that's like saying you were opening for the Rolling Stones in 1972. Hank Williams Sr. was the center of the universe.
He was the sun everyone else orbited around.
Yeah.
And the dynamic between them must have been fascinating, just visually and energetically. You had Hank, who was frail, struggling with severe back pain, dealing with substance abuse.
Right.
And then you had Lister, this vibrant, massive, healthy giant warming up the crowd.
It must have been quite the contrast. And Lister wasn't just a warm-up act. He was a regular fixture. He was performing on the Grand Ole Opry, rubbing shoulders with the Carter family and String Bean.
And Delwood. And these aren't just names. I mean, these are the architects of the genre. And Lister is right there in the mix.
I was reading through the session notes from his time with Everstate and Capitol Records, and his sound is described as incredibly distinct. It wasn't the polished Nashville sound that came later.
No, it was raw.
Yeah.
It was authentic, unvarnished. The track that usually gets cited here to sort of explain his vibe is R.C. Cola and a Moon Pie.
Which is possibly the most Southern title ever recorded.
It is cultural shorthand. I mean, even today, that combination, an R.C. Cola and a Moon Pie, is a specific signifier of working-class Southern life. For Lister to record that in the early 50s shows, he was tapping into a very populist, relatable vein.
He wasn't singing high art.
No, he was singing about lunch breaks.
It's comfort food set to a rhythm. But despite his own success, and despite being a giant on the Opry stage, his legacy is really tied to a song he didn't even write. Which brings us to the Lost Demo. This is the pivot point of the whole story.
Right. So Hank Williams Sr. writes a song called There's a Tear in My Beer. Now, looking at the sheet music and the lyrics, this is a quintessential weeper.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the title alone. Into my beer, I'm shedding tears, I'm crying over you. It's just devastating.
It's heavy. And Hank, who had incredible instincts for the industry, he knew it was too much. He reportedly told Lister that his producer would never let him record it professionally. It was maybe too depressing or just too honky-tonk when they were trying to polish his image a bit.
So he records a demo, and I think we need to clarify what a demo meant in 1951. We aren't talking about a voice memo on an iPhone.
No, and this is crucial to understanding the stakes. This would have been an acetate disc. An acetate is a phonograph record, but it's for instant playback, not mass production. It's usually an aluminum core coated with nitrocellulose lacquer.
And nitrocellulose sounds volatile.
It is. It's chemically unstable over long periods, but more importantly, it's soft. Every time you play an acetate, the needle literally shaves a little bit of the sound away. They degrade incredibly fast. They're sensitive to heat, moisture, everything.
So Hank cuts this fragile disc, just him and a guitar. He decides he can't use it, and instead of throwing it in the trash, he hands it to the giant standing next to him.
He gives it to Big Bill. He basically says, I can't do anything with this. Maybe you can. And Lister actually did record his own studio version of it in 1951, but it didn't really, set the world on fire.
But he kept the disc. The real treasure, the one Hank touched, the one with Hank's voice on it.
He took it home, and then, well, life happens. The 50s turn into the 60s. Lister eventually moves on from music, which we'll get to, and the acetate goes into a box. It moves with him from house to house. It sits in closets, garages, and attics.
For almost 40 years. That's the part that stresses me out, thinking about this priceless piece of audio history just baking in a Texas attic.
It is a miracle it survived. Texas heat is not kind to nitrocellulose, but in the late 1980s, Lister and his wife are doing some spring cleaning. They open a box, and there it is.
Can you even imagine that? You just move some old junk around, and you find a lost vocal performance by the greatest country singer of all time.
It's the definition of a buried treasure. Now, Lister realizes what he has. He could have sold it to a collector for a fortune, but he contacts Hank Williams Jr., who was a massive superstar by this point. Lister hands over the acetate. And this is where the story shifts from history to technology. Because Hank Jr. didn't just want to release the scratchy demo as a museum piece, he wanted to collaborate with his father.
And this is the technological miracle part of our deep dive. We have to contextualize 1988, 1989. We are pre-Pro Tools as we know it. We are pre-AI audio separation.
Oh, yeah. We are in the era of high-end analog tape and early digital synthesis. The producer, Jim Ed Norman, had a massive challenge. He had a mono recording, meaning everything is in one channel, voice and guitar mashed together, and it's full of surface noise, pops, hiss.
And the timing. A solo acoustic demo is never perfect. Hank Sr. wasn't playing to a click track or a metronome. He was speeding up and slowing down as he felt the emotion of the song.
That's the hardest part. If you want to build a full band arrangement around a vocal, the vocal has to be consistent. If the tempo drifts, the band sounds sloppy. But they couldn't change Hank Sr., so they had to map the entire new arrangement to follow the fluctuations of the dead father's guitar playing.
So they didn't fix Hank Sr., they forced the modern band to follow his ghost.
Precisely. Then Hank Jr. goes into the vocal booth. He has to sing the harmony parts. He's singing with headphones on, listening to his father's voice from 1951, trying to match the phrasing exactly. It's an eerie concept.
And it worked. The song, released in 1989, hit number 7 on the Billboard country charts. It won a Grammy, it won a CMA award. It was a massive commercial success.
It proved that you could bridge that generation gap sonically. But the audio was just the appetizer. The main course was the music video.
I rewatched this video this morning to prepare. Even by today's standards, it is impressive. But for 1989, it looks like actual magic.
It was absolutely groundbreaking. The video won Video of the Year from the CMA and the ACM, and it solved a problem that seemed impossible. There was no footage of Hank Williams Sr. singing "There's a Tear in My Beer."
He never performed it on camera.
No.
Not once.
Never. So the director, Ethan Russell, and the editors, they had to manufacture a performance. They found an old kinscope of Hank Sr. singing "Hey Good Lookin'."
Pause there. Define kinscope for us. Because that sounds like something from a sci-fi movie.
It's actually very low-tech. In the early days of TV, there was no videotape. So if you wanted to record a broadcast, you literally set up a film camera in front of a TV monitor and film the screen. It's grainy, it has a specific contrasty look, and the frame rate can be a bit weird.
So they have footage of him singing "Hey Good Lookin'," which is an upbeat, fast song. "There's a Tear in My Beer" is a slow waltz. The lips don't match, the tempo doesn't match.
Right. This is where the sheer labor comes in. This wasn't an AI deepfake where you type a prompt and the computer fixes it. They had to use a technique that relied on the time signature. Both songs are in 44 time, so the rhythmic pulse is compatible even if the speed isn't.
So they just slow down the footage.
They manipulated the speed of the film frame by frame to align the downbeats of "Hey Good Lookin'" with the downbeats of "Tear in My Beer." But the real trick was the mouth.
The lip sync.
They realized that certain vowels and jaw movements in "Hey Good Lookin'" looked enough like the lyrics of "Tear in My Beer" if you sort of squinted. But for the parts that didn't match, they cut away, they used reaction shots, they edited around the mismatch so your brain fills in the gaps. It's a masterclass in editing rhythm.
And then they had to put Hank Jr. inside the video.
Right. Compositing. Today we use green screens and it takes 5 minutes. Back then, they used a technique similar to rotoscoping. They had to film Hank Jr. matching the lighting and the angle of the original 1950s footage perfectly. Then, they had to create a matte, essentially cutting him out frame by frame and layer him into the grainy footage.
And they added artificial grain to Hank Jr. to make him look as low fidelity as his dad.
Exactly. They degraded the new footage to match the old. When Hank Jr. walks in and stands next to his dad, and then, this is the kicker, Hank Sr. appears to look at him and smile. That's just a lucky moment from the original footage that they repurposed to look like a father acknowledging his son.
So emotional. It feels like a reunion.
It fooled the eye and touched the heart. It was the perfect storm of technology and sentiment.
And none of it happens without Big Bill Lister.
None of it. Without that acetate disc in the attic, there is no audio source, and without the audio source, there is no video.
So Lister facilitates this massive comeback. But I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier. Lister left the music industry in the early 60s. He didn't just retire to a rocking chair. He started a second act that I find almost harder to believe than the Ghost duet.
It is a radical pivot. He became a firearms engraver.
And we're not talking about scratching initials into a barrel with a pocket knife.
No, we are talking about high art scrollwork, inlaying gold and silver into steel. It's a discipline that requires microscope-level attention to detail and a hand that cannot shake, not even by a millimeter.
Think about the contrast. He spent his youth on stage, booming voice, bright lights, feeding off the chaotic energy of a crowd. Then he spends his middle age in total silence, staring at a piece of metal, making cuts that are thinner than a human hair.
It suggests a personality with incredible focus. You can't fake engraving. One slip and you ruin a gun that might be worth thousands of dollars. And by all accounts, he became one of the premier engravers of his generation.
But the music did eventually pull him back in.
It did. The attic discovery in the late 80s obviously put him back in the spotlight. But even before that, in 1983, he released a comeback album.
Show enough country stuff.
Yeah.
The second time around.
You have to love the title.
It tells you exactly what you're getting.
It was produced by Slim Ritchie and Michael H. Price for the Texgrass label. But my favorite detail about this comeback is the band. He was backed by the Salt Lick Foundation.
Which is a top-tier band name. It makes me thirsty just saying it.
It is. And the band included his nephew, Harris Kirby. So again, we see this theme of family running through Lister's life. He connects Hank Sr. to Hank Jr., and he connects himself to his own nephew on stage.
And he was touring with a jazz ensemble, too.
Diddy Wah Diddy, yes.
Huh.
He was playing jazz and country in Dallas and Fort Worth. It shows he wasn't just a one-trick pony. He had musical versatility that went way beyond the singing cowboy persona.
So when we zoom out and look at the full arc of Weldon Big Bill Lister, it's such a unique shape for a career. He's a giant in the 50s. He disappears to become a master craftsman of steel. Then he re-emerges as the keeper of the flame for country music's biggest legend.
He's the ultimate supporting actor who steals the show in the third act. He wasn't the star like Hank Williams, but he was the vessel. He carried the history.
It really highlights the importance of stuff. You know, we live in an era of cloud storage and streaming. Everything is bits and bytes. But this entire cultural moment, the Grammys, the video, the #7 hit, only happened because a physical object existed.
That's the big takeaway for me. If that acetate had been thrown out, or if the heat in that Texas attic had been just a few degrees higher and melted the grooves, that song is gone forever. The collaboration never happens. Hank Jr. never sings with his dad.
It makes you wonder what else is out there.
That's the tantalizing part. We assume everything has been digitized. We assume Spotify has everything ever recorded. But the Tear in My Beer story proves that cultural masterpieces can be sitting in a cardboard box, mislabeled, or just forgotten.
And it suggests that we're always just one technological breakthrough away from resurrecting the past. In 1951, they couldn't have imagined the video. In 1989, they couldn't have imagined what we can do now with AI audio separation.
Exactly. If you found that acetate today, you could extract Hank's voice perfectly, remove the surface noise entirely, and it would sound like he was in the room with you. The technology keeps unlocking new layers of the history that people like Lister preserved.
So the final thought for you listening today, go check your attic.
Seriously, check the attic, check the basement, look inside the piano bench.
You might not find a Hank Williams demo, but you never know what piece of history is just waiting for the right technology to bring it back to life.
Or at the very least, you might find some old RC Cola bottles and a cool hat.
That's a wrap on Big Bill Lister, the giant with the golden touch. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
Pleasure as always.
We'll catch you on the next one.